Information about bookbinding thread and needles. Take 4. Just a little bit of information about the materials we use for sewing books in class. I store a lot of needles on pieces of styrofoam, and these will be adequate for projects that you're using. I sometimes will find a magnet like this mascot magnet, and the needles that I'm working with at my station, I might just keep them on something like that so they don't roll off. Lots of needles are available for sewing. There are only 2 things that I'm most concerned about with needles that we want to use in bookbinding. One, that the eye in the needle be as large as possible. You're going to put a piece of thread in there that's thicker than traditional sewing thread, and if the eye in the needle is larger, it will be easier. Something that I look for is a needle that's a little bit on the blunt side versus the sharp side. These harness needles will usually have a more blunt side, and the bookbinder needles tend to be a little bit sharper. It's not a problem to use a sharp one. I just find that it might catch itself on things, and I'm likely to poke myself. So those are the only 2 things that you really need to be aware of when it comes to needles. The bookbinding thread we use is a thread such as this brand that I've used for many years. We used to refer to it, or we still refer to it as Irish linen. I notice it's now made in the EU. So it's possible that it's not made in Ireland, but if I mention, just use the Irish linen, this is what I mean. This number, the 18 refers to the thickness of the cord. The higher the number, like a 35 or something, the thread will be thinner, and a lower number like 12 will be a little bit thicker. If you're going to sew a book with 15 or 20 signatures, you might want to use the higher number because it won't swell the spine as much. But other than that, the only other characteristic about this is that it's very lightly waxed. I don't like to use a pre-waxed thread in bookbinding because when the pre-waxed threads that I've seen contain too much wax. I use a little bit of wax, and I'll show you how I use it, but this is what I tend to use. And of course, if you have a project that needs something that's more specific, just check with me and we'll make sure that just how appropriate and how strong the thread is. But I've helped students use a variety of colors and a variety of thread for specific projects. Here are 2 packages of needles that you're likely to find in the classroom. The harness needles are the ones that are more on the blunt side, and the bookbinders are a little bit sharper. I'm going to start with the length of thread. I'll start with the blunt needle. Some people will find it easier to thread the needle if they just wax the end of it. I can flatten this down, and we'll just thread the needle in traditional fashion. And I'm going to bring about this much. Then I will unwind the thread and run my needle through the thread, and I'll pull both of these pieces of thread down until it comes off. And now I have created a little bit of tension so that it's not going to come out of the needle. If I want to just put a light coat of wax on the rest of it, I'll run this through it 2 times. And now I just thread and needle set up so I can bind a book.